Welcome back, my friends, to episode 9 of Beyond Bricks and Mortar. Now, this one I'm particularly excited about. Today I'm joined by Ryan Coyne, but don't call him Ryan. He doesn't like that. Coyne is truly the spirit and the brain behind the scenes at SERHANT. Serving as our Chief Technology Officer, in a lot of ways, Coyne truly is the life force of this company. What I appreciate about him the most is the way he melds his work in technology, which is generally a difficult topic for many to follow, with an incredible level of patience and care and hospitality. Coyne makes you feel like you could tell him anything. This conversation was incredibly insightful and goes far deeper than just technology. But Coyne is someone who is full of wisdom as it relates to life, as it relates to business, to marriage. I cannot say enough good things. That's absolutely the truth. I really love this guy. And everyone at SERHANT and pretty much everyone who meets him feels the same way. As always, I'm really excited for you guys to check out this conversation. If you're new here, welcome. New episodes of Beyond Bricks and Mortar are every single Wednesday on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and everywhere that you get your podcasts. So please remember to hit that like and subscribe button and continue to listen and watch, because we have a long line of incredible guests coming up every single week. So now, without further ado, my good friend, Ryan Coyne. Well, just Coyne.
Wow. Who else builds a brand off an email signature? Show me who in the world built a brand off an email signature. And
I think you also have the only email signature that is just one name.
Coyne, yeah.
Coyne.
There's a story behind that too.
I want to hear that story, but the first time I called you Ryan, you were like,
Let's hold on. And people think it's because of Ryan Serhant, and it didn't start there.
When I was considering making the jump, I was having a conversation with a colleague at the time, with Maria Babayev.
One of the best. She was at Inman on Tuesday.
Yes. So she goes, when I told her, I remember telling her, I'm like, listen, I'm going to be going over to SERHANT. And she goes, oh, man, I love Ryan, but the other Ryan. I'm like, what do you mean? What other Ryan? She goes, don't worry, you're going to meet him.
She got there on Tuesday and she was asking for me. She was telling people, have you seen Ryan? And they were like, yeah, but he's like doing other stuff. And she's like, no, Ryan Coyne.
Yeah.
No one knows me that way at our company. A lot of people don't even find out I have a first name until they're here for 6 months. And they go, oh, and he lives in Florida? I had no idea either of these things.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. I got to say, like, I want to just open this up by just really offering you a heartfelt thank you. Like, I know how busy you are and I know how much you have on your plate. But, since I joined SERHANT, it's been almost 2 years. Like, you've never once failed to make time for me. And the truth is, I realized pretty quickly that you're like that with everybody. Like, you are really there for everybody. Like, a support system that I've never, ever seen before to this degree. And I'm so honored to have you sitting in the chair and sharing the mic with me for a little while. So I really, really appreciate it.
That's incredibly kind of you, and thank you for having me here. Really,
that
means a lot to me.
You're like the soul of the company, and its brain.
I mean, what does that even mean? Sometimes to be the soul of something. I mean, we as an amalgam, when we were founding the company and sitting around thinking about what the standards were going to be, I think that it was just like New York City as a melting pot, and that's in our soul and why we get along with everybody, and the expansion's been pretty effortless and stuff. It was all the best parts of who we were as a group, thinking about doing it in the first place, by agents for agents, right? But also when it comes to what the standards were going to be of excellence, also on the support side, it's something that I knew from the way that my dad operated his businesses, and his reputation was so good for being there for people, and the way that he was always there in a crisis for our family, our friends, different kinds of things. That was something I wanted to emulate in my businesses. I saw the effect it had on people. It's like a feeling.
Yeah.
And that's even with the big announcement that we had at Inman on Tuesday about what Simple is and what that means to have the brokerage properly supporting the people that are there. It all comes back to where are the enthusiastic compliments going about the company?
Yes.
Everybody talks about the level of support. Speaking for my tech departments, obviously there's been a pretty universal, like 5 stars, whatever it is. That's not an accident. It's a conscious respect about what it means that in a world, right? Like the movie trailer.
Hey now.
Right. That's so based on technology and apps, right? That what does it mean to have people there to help you when it goes wrong, when something goes beep in the night?
Yeah.
And the high standard of support, which is what I built my brand and reputation on, is something we wanted to bring to all areas of the company. There's a lot of different roles and hats that we've all worn since the beginning, And it's also been something that when you're going to think about letting go, and you can relate to this, being a real estate agent, it's like, when do you start trusting and delegating things out to other people to help you?
It's a hard thing to do.
Very hard. Are they going to maintain and represent you well? Are they going to do it the way that you want? And you're going to have to spend time. Like when I speak in front of crowds and I say to everybody, raise your hand if somebody in your personal life or your professional life has offered to help you because you seem too busy. And then you say, I really appreciate that, but it would take me just as long to teach you how to do it the way I do it as it would be to just do it myself. And all the hands go up.
Yeah.
There's something about that. So,
also, it's like hard to surrender a skill that you have, that you've developed yourself, to someone else, because I feel like naturally there's a level of anxiety in turning it over to someone else. Like, you don't know if they're going to deliver it to the same degree that you can.
Yeah.
Like that's how I feel about video editing. Like, it takes up a tremendous amount of my time to do this type of stuff, but I don't want to surrender that skill to someone else. I feel like I put so much into doing that, to making it part of my brand.
Think about if you were a chef, right? Like how many of these chefs have their name on a restaurant, but they're not actually in the kitchen.
Right.
They have to hope that their brand and what they're known for, whether it's Wolfgang Puck or Gordon Ramsay or whoever it is, or Guy Fieri, they put their name on this thing and they have to hope that every service is going to be the way that it would be if they were there.
Right.
And then you're stepping back and hoping that the standards you've put in place. Why do restaurants and hotels use the word hospitality? Right, the word hospital's right in there.
Yeah.
And we don't even think about the fact that hospitals are designed to nurture you and get you well.
Yes.
And to take good care of you.
Yeah.
At least in theory. I've spent a lot of time in hospitals personally throughout my life. It's like a whole other thing. But right there, it's about taking care of people and nursing them in some which way. Which is
helping them feel seen and heard and understood.
Right. So for us, it's a lot about hospitality. It's why we call it, our main office is clubhouses. It's why, every department, the goal, like the unofficial HR, HR won't let me say this. Okay. But we're on your podcast and I can say anything. My unofficial customer service policy is that every customer service interaction has to be so good that you crave a cigarette afterward.
Yeah.
Right.
That's good.
So I want you leaving every single call with being like
you just climaxed.
I'm like, damn, I'm done talking to the IT department and the tech people. Like, I'm sad about that versus most people try to avoid and don't look forward to interactions with. Now that my job is almost 0% IT related and I have great people that help me do that.
Yeah.
But it extends all the way out to the vibe around the tech departments. And I'm really glad that it's influenced a lot of the culture of customer support in other departments too.
Yeah, well, you touched on something that I think is so important, especially nowadays. Like, I think there's very much a fundamental difference between service and hospitality. Hospitality is really like, it's the emotional response that's evoked from the service we provide. It's the spirit of the whole thing.
Service is getting the thing done. Hospitality is the way that you feel after it's been done.
Service is like the sequence of things we do with consistency. At this point in time, like, we expect service in almost anything. Like you mentioned restaurants. When you go to a restaurant, you expect your food to come out in 13 minutes. That's service. But how it's delivered, or how your server makes you feel, all of us, when we're sitting in a restaurant or in any context that relates to hospitality, we just want to feel like the person taking care of us gets us.
100%. You watch the show The Bear?
Of course.
Okay, so remember that episode when the cousin was staging at one of the most famous... And
I know what you're going to say.
Before the guests were coming in, they were having this meeting about who was showing up to dinner. They had researched everybody. They knew all these personal details and idiosyncrasies. This person this person that. This person had always wanted to try deep dish before they left Chicago. Like, that was a great example.
Yes.
So every single agent that comes to SERHANT, even if I'm not the person who's personally onboarding every single one of the first things that people see when they come to the company is a video of me welcoming them to the company and walking them through the initial getting started.
Yes.
FaceTime matters, right? And then I also make sure that there's a connection at some point where I get to ask them two questions. What are the things that you rely on day to day that help you get your stuff done, that relates to tech in whatever way? And the second question is, if you had a magic wand, what would exist today in the tech world that doesn't exist now? Whatever that is. Don't look fully outside the box, whatever that was. Whether we have it on the way or whether it's just, I want to know more about you as a person and how you relate to technology, right? We also use this cool tool called Crystal Knows that I've been using for like 9 years, where I look up every person, I see about their disk profile from all the thousands of things the internet knows about the person. And we put notes in the IT system.
That's so interesting. I want to see that. I want to see
it's neat.
What my file looks like.
We can look you up after. I bet you're an ID. You're like an influential driver kind of person.
Really?
I can kind of predict. I don't lean on it as much as I used to. I can kind of like calibrate myself to a person pretty quickly.
Wow.
But
it's great for podcast research.
It is. It is. It's great for everything research because, especially for sales, because you can. I'll tell you that story in a minute. But what we use it for in the tech department is we have a little bit of a persona set of notes on each person. Okay, a lot of tech companies call their customers users. In fact, it's kind of funny. The only two industries that call their customers users are technology companies and drug dealers. Okay, yes. who call their customer base users. Because they're so addicted to it. Yeah. Fiending, give me more apps, all this. But for us, we build this we have a documentation system that anybody from the help desk, which I'm very selective with who gets to work with us and who gets to be on the support team, I train them 3 times a week. Even if I'm not involved in the actual nuts and bolts of day-to-day, like fixing things or providing the tech support the way that I used to be, I train them 3 times a week on here are some trends and some different things coming up that you should be aware of. Just from when you see these things, you'll know what they're talking about.
Right.
But more importantly, on the human interaction side. And we go over what the notes mean on, okay, this new team onboarded. Out of the 5 of them, this person's more of a captain. They're going to want to just get it fixed and they don't care. This person's more of a conscientious person. They're going to want to know why it broke and what's being done to prevent it from being, reoccurring next time. This person's more steady and just needs to know that everybody else is okay. And this person's the influential person that if we can get them enthusiastic about an app or a method, they're going to be doing the sales of everybody should be adopting a certain app. So
this is like your pre-meal meeting like they have in the Bear.
100%. Yeah. It's exactly built on the same premise. And even before the Bear aired, this was like my strategy of if we really understand the base of people that we're supporting, then we're building the right tech for you because we understand the need. We're getting you to spend extra time talking to us beyond the it's broken, when can it be fixed? We're actually having that conversation, or some people call a coinversation, right? And then we're building a way of that everybody gets that personalized support so that before they call you to fix the thing, they already can see the notes on the way that you prefer to be interacted with.
Right.
There's no other company that I know of, especially not in the real estate industry, that's making sure that you're supported on the tech side in a way that calibrates itself to your personality.
You really do embody hospitality in the way you think about all this stuff. Have you read Will Guidara's book, Unreasonable Hospitality?
I have not.
Do I
sound less intelligent for saying I didn't?
No, but actually, because and the reason I'm asking is because you reference the Bear, and actually that story with the deep dish is actually inspired by a true story. Will Guidara was the maitre d' and co-owner of 11 Madison Park, which is the #1 restaurant in the world. Yeah, and that story comes from a time when he was helping to clear out a table. He was helping clear off a 4-cover, and he overheard the family sitting at the table having a conversation, and they were like, oh man, our visit to New York has been amazing, and we've been to all these great restaurants, and we've been to Masa, and we've been to Danielle, and we've been to Per Se, and we went to Broadway, and this and that, but the only thing we didn't try was a New York City hot dog. So he overhears it. So what he does is he runs around the block and he grabs a boiled hot dog off the cart, and he actually references the hardest part of that moment was convincing the chef to do something with this hot dog
to make it
special. But he got through to the chef, and the chef cut the hot dog into 4 perfect pieces and put them on the plate with a little quenelle of sauerkraut and the swoosh of ketchup and the swoosh of mustard. And he comes around to the table with the 4 servers behind him, and he goes, to make sure you go home with no culinary regrets, a New York City hot dog. And he says, of course, that they went crazy. They freaked out from that moment. But that moment is not what's going to help them remember the restaurant forever as much as it's going to help them remember their trip to New York City forever.
People always forget the details. If you interview people about, if you ask somebody right when they come home from a trip, right, and you say, how was it? How was the flight? How was the hotel? They'll have all the little things, unless they were a cast member on White Lotus, and nothing too serious happened. They're gonna remember all these little details about one of the pieces of luggage was delayed, or they got the wrong room mixed up, or it took forever to check in, or But you ask them like 6 months or a year later, oh yeah, no, we loved wherever we went, like whatever,
Right.
insert the name of the place, because the bad things fade and you have the good things to remember, unless it was somehow actually traumatic,
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the same kind of thing. You walk away with that overarching feeling, and that's
Yeah.
one of the things we go for. And I think it's one of the biggest reasons that, like, out of all the departments at SERHANT, people default to reaching out to IT, even if it's not IT related.
Yeah, I feel like that's in most companies,
No, you'd be surprised. Like, because people, and I know because I used to have other clients before Ryan put a ring on my finger and said, "Will you marry/start a company with me?" Right? And I saw all these different leadership styles. Like, I've been working with Ryan for almost 10 years, and SERHANT's only three and change years old.
Yeah.
So I used to have hundreds of other companies that I would consult to, and I saw all these different leadership styles that were various degrees of successful. So many. And one of the common themes was that people avoided wanting to reach out for tech help. I was usually the consultant to, like, the board of directors or the CEO, whatever it was, in my later years. Like, way earlier in my career, I was like the IT dude for random people. But I saw the evolution of how much people did everything they could to avoid the interaction. They would Google it. They would try to solve the problem themselves, very frequently exacerbating the problem, and why was that? And I think in the tech industry, you grow up loving tech very frequently because it's safe. You spend a lot of time by yourself. The computer is something that allows you to, like, edit and delete and really contemplate before you have to respond to somebody, right? So many deep friendships are formed across the internet, whether it was your World of Warcraft clan of people or a long distance relationship that you formed that, like, yeah, we met online, but we didn't actually get together for however long. And you develop this relationship to the outside world that's based on the ability to think before you are seen, not just before you speak, not just before you act, but to think before you're even seen. There's an anonymity to it, a great filter between you and the world. And then when you realize I need to support myself and make money, and the soft skills become important, it's usually backwards. Like, I'll rather take somebody who has the soft skills and train them up on the tech, because that's like what everybody has tried for so long, which is to take the talented technician and then try to teach them soft skills is fucking impossible.
Yeah.
But if somebody who can bring that extra bedside manner, because we're basically digital physicians, right?
Yeah, it's the same thing with real estate agents. We have to help people feel comfortable. It's a very
100%.
Emotional decision, when you're
100%.
buying a home or selling a home.
100%. So I think that's a very important vibe, and whether it's now with SERHANT Simple or anything other initiatives and other apps that we've developed or launched or big things or trainings that I have, it's in the walls of everything that we do. And I'm glad that other departments kind of go like, damn, like, we keep getting these high ratings on the technology departments, whether it's software or tech support or whatever. And it caught on. It's great.
Most people, I feel like, in your craft and IT have pretty sort of stagnant personalities, but you have a lot of life to what you bring, a lot of life to what you do. So I think that's what I meant when I said that you're really like the soul of the company. It's like of course you help everything run right, like any tech department should, but you do it with you have a delivery system that you just don't find anywhere else. Like, you put a lot of personality into the work.
Thanks, man.
It's true.
I Ryan and I hit it off initially because I thought that he was a very exciting real estate agent. And he found me to be a very not boring technical person to do some consulting with him.
Because you don't make the person you're talking to feel stupid,
But why though? Why would I?
Yeah.
Like, I remember that old SNL skit with Jimmy Fallon where he would play the IT guy and he would say, "Move."
Yes.
Like, playing into the stereotype of that.
Yeah.
Our attitude, and something that we talk about a lot on both the software team, the actual support team, even with the agent operations team and the marketing departments, whenever it's a technical item, because everything involves technology behind the scenes, right? It's an ecosystem. It's a coral reef. Things are in balance. It's symbiotic.
Yes.
We don't eat unless you eat, okay? Everything that we do is about enabling you to go out there and you be Taylor Swift and go out there and perform to your millions of fans. And if you need to come backstage and you need to vent about how your feet hurt because of whatever, that's our job to be your partner. There's a trust that you can share with us because we're like your cut man in the corner. Your sellers are beating you up and your buyers are beating you up in the ring. You come back into the corner tired and exhausted. And if you've had a rough day out there, it's our job to get you pumped back up mentally, emotionally, and physically, wipe the blood off your cheeks and send you back out there to go for a knockout punch.
I love that.
You know, so it's like, or like in Finding Nemo, we all have a job to do. Why would I resent you for not being a technology expert when that would put me out of a job and when that would be asking you to be something that you're not? I need you to be an expert at what you're an expert at.
Yeah.
I'll do the same. We all put our kids through college. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's that simple sometimes. So I think if people think about it as more of a circuit, like electricity only moves when it's got a circuit to travel across.
Where did this all start for you? Like, where did the passion or even the interest to dive into tech start for you?
I was 2.5 years old.
Wow.
I was the youngest of 5. I had 3 older sisters that were each from a half marriage. Well, they were from previous marriages of my parents, right? They were all half sisters. I think of them as full sisters today if they're watching.
I have half siblings, and I consider them the same.
This is the same. It's indistinguishable. And then when I was 4.5, my mom adopted one of her 13-year-old 8th grade students from her English class.
Wow.
Michelle Pfeiffer and Sandra Bullock owe my mom some royalties. I'm just putting that out there. But so I ended up being the youngest of 5 in this very like competitive for attention family. Like I was 9 years younger than my next youngest sibling. So I was the baby.
Yeah.
I was the oops, which back then was still acceptable to say, according to my Sicilian mother.
It's still acceptable to say.
Yeah. Well, but there's a couple of people who'd be like, how dare you? Back then it was funny, you know. So sure enough, I remember we had this Commodore 128 in the house that was for the older kids, but it also played games. And so I was playing around on it. And my dad was like, oh, that's very dangerous. He's too young. The computer's too expensive. So he turned it off with the switch in the back, right? Thinking that was going to keep me from turning it on. Comes home from work that day. I had figured out that there was a switch in the back. And they knew that was the end as far as I was going to keep tinkering. From then on, I was taking apart the remote control and putting it back together just to see what was inside. And like, just a curiosity about it. And like, when the VCR he was trying to record a tape or whatever, I was trying to figure out, I was like, how does this go?
Like, did you become the fixer of the family? You're always fixing things?
Not always, but it was just a curiosity about how stuff works. I used to love like modern marvels on the History Channel, you know. I had a book, How Stuff Works. I was fascinated with the world behind the world. One of my favorite podcasts, other than the Ariel Sassoon show, is called 99% Invisible, and it's all about the things that we take for granted around us that are designed and thought through, that we just kind of like live in this world that's very designed and created.
It's a great concept for a podcast.
It's a great one. It's 500 and something episodes.
Wow, I got to check that out.
It's a good one. But that was that natural curiosity, was like, wow. And then when my parents split up when I was 7, one of the conditions of the divorce was that he had to get me a computer, my father. So I got a PC running Windows 95 in 1994. And I was like, this is amazing, but I want to get on this internet that everybody's talking about. Yeah. So I saved my allowance and I go on my bike and I go to the local computer electronics store that was like still a retail little mom and pop, like there's a few dusty things on the shelves. And I bought a 28.8 baud modem, right? With the like all the sounds and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was 7, right? So I go home and I install it myself. I took the computer apart. I put this modem in, and then I'm like, how do I get online? And like I was asking people, and they were like, oh, just get AOL. To get back on the bike, and I go to Barnes and Noble, and I get like an hour's free CD.
You have to get like the CD.
Yeah. But then one of my friends in school was like, yo, here's a floppy disk with something called the Gritty Redialer. Because back then you had to sit and dial up, and if you didn't get a connection, you had to like wait. But somebody made an app that would just keep calling and calling. And that moment when I was like, all right, this is all cool, but the fact that we used to call it SneakerNet, right? Like instead of the internet, SneakerNet is like exchanging things with people just that you meet in person. So the fact that somebody wrote an app, a simple app, that all it did just does one thing well, was call AOL over and over again until you got a good connection. That blew my mind. And that was really set it ablaze. I was like, okay, now that I know that like the truly anything is possible aspect of this, that just took the fascination up to like 11. And from that point on, I just thought it was so romantic that not only could you access this world of information, but that you could bend it, that you weren't limited to just what they wanted you to provide.
It's malleable.
Yeah, you could change the hardware, you could change the software, you could make your own. Like that was such a dividing moment for me. Like that was after knowing that was possible, that changed everything.
And did you go to school for it also?
I went to Suffolk County Community College for 3 semesters.
Oh, so you grew up in Long Island.
I grew up in Long Island, in Huntington. Little Vincent's turned me into Big Coyne.
We're like we didn't grow up too far away from each other. I grew up in Great Neck.
Yeah. No, I have a 24-inch Great Neck. Yeah, so it's I have some of that, even though I didn't grow there.
I read something interesting that you had developed this idea or this system to reimagine the Postal Service. Mm-hmm. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that because that sounded pretty fascinating to me.
I was walking my dog one day, and I was thinking about the concept of like addresses and like how they're mandated, like that Seinfeld episode where like Kramer needed to get his mail, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking about how there was all this opportunity for a different system that like the post office seemed to always be struggling. I was hearing in the news they're raising the cost of stamps and stuff. I just had this epiphany, like why isn't, at the time I was living in Hicksville, why isn't my house 87 Twin Lawns Ave at hicksville.usps.gov? You know, or something similar like that. Like I have a mailbox on the side of my house that has to be there. It has to get mail. There's an address of how to send something to me. If it's too big to fit in a standard message, then it has to come in a package as an attachment. Like email was modeled off of so much of what we already did in the physical world that why wasn't there a digital way that the USPS could be in the same game? Like why were they sitting on the sidelines, and why was big tech just giving us free email to use us as batteries in the matrix to mine us, and like privacy concerns and whatever? And then I did research and found out that the USPS had actually tried email back in the late 80s.
Really?
Yeah, for like a quarter, you could send a federal email. But I was like, if you could take email and add Fourth Amendment search and seizure rights to it, so that like it was illegal to hack into somebody's email, right? Or you could charge for registered email that was like admissible in court instead of having to go to the post office. Or if you want to send a physical letter, instead of it having to travel in between Long Island and Juneau, Alaska for the same price because it's in the Constitution, it has to be. It's like the USPS is constitutionally mandated to exist. Ben Franklin was the first postmaster general.
Yeah.
People don't always think about this. But it has to cost the same amount no matter where it goes. That was fine when it was ponies and it was the 13 colonies, whatever. But what if you sent it digitally, but if you wanted a physical copy, it would just print out at the post office in Juneau and not have to travel in between, right? That way you're cutting down, if you got people doing that, still needed a physical copy to arrive, but it doesn't have to actually travel the whole way.
Yeah.
Think about the emissions you cut, right?
Yeah.
Think about, the number one health complaint and the number one health insurance claim by postal carriers, letter carriers, is bladder infections.
Really?
They gotta pee all day.
I never would have thought.
Who knows? One of us could have to pee right now. How do you know?
Do you have to pee? You can go.
No, I'm fine. I just went under your table. It's fine. But but there's 7 postal unions. 7 rural letter carriers have their own postal union. Like you need a plan to modernize the USPS into a modern technology company while pleasing all 7 unions, giving them a way to be profitable permanently, creating jobs, and also making sure that you can maintain the federal employee benefits, even though they're a private corporation that is owned by the federal government. And with the Postal Act of 1971, they were granted a willful monopoly on letter-sized mail, which is why if you want to send a letter, FedEx or UPS, you need to put it in a giant envelope because it's illegal for them to do what the post office has the ability to do.
Uh-huh.
It's weird, right? So I found out that they have a C-suite, the post office. And there's the only federal part is the Postal Regulatory Commission, which oversees them, right? And the thing that blows my mind most is that if they were a publicly traded company, they'd be number 47 on the Fortune 500.
Wow.
At $74 billion a year in
So
revenue.
what's the reality? Like, is it possible that this is ever going to really happen?
I really believe so, because it's not a business model. It's something that when I got as far as the Senate and the House Appropriations Committees with the plan, which was wild that there was actually interest.
I was gonna say, that's pretty cool.
It was cool. I had a couple of clients of mine.
Did you do like some lobbying for it? And all that?
I had clients of mine that gave me about $150,000 to hire Winning Strategies Washington. It's a lobbying firm, okay? They drafted a whole proposal and got a thing started and started writing a bill
so cool.
To fund a study into my plan. It was a 27-point plan. We called it the New Deal-Livery was the name of the plan. Okay?
Love that.
And Ryan SERHANT read the plan. His wife read the plan. They were both big supporters. They were like, all right, just don't forget us when you're in Washington. I was like, I have no intention of going to make this my career. I want to donate this plan to the American people, like Jonas Salk donated the polio vaccine.
Right.
Seriously. I was like, this is just a good idea that just makes sense. I don't actually want to get into the post office as a job.
Yeah.
I have the perfect job right now. Like, I have my dream job. So I got into some really interesting rooms and conversations and got a lot of support. But then there was like a little thing called impeachment and then COVID and then more impeachment and more COVID. And all the senators and Congress people were just like, listen, everything's going to be about economic policy making for like the foreseeable future. So we'll come back to you. But I told them, all I want is like a little statue on the National Mall, like a little credit. That's it. Nothing. I don't need $1.
Yeah.
But it's a neat plan. There was a lot of neat features to it.
Yeah, well, Washington's a mess right now, but I'm sure when things calm down, you can bring this back to life.
I would ask you this. Let's close this topic with this. What's the number one risk that you feel when you mail a regular letter?
That it'll just end up in someone else's hands.
Okay, so what if there's 4,560 something post offices around the U.S. and Alaska and even other places? About 48% of the world's mail actually passes through the U.S. postal system. About 48% of it.
Really?
Yeah, it's a wild number. Now, we have the ability to put a computer, because there are, in all of those post offices, and a use for the blockchain other than cryptocurrency and other than NFTs, which I told everybody to watch out for, and the people who listened to me saved money instead of lost money.
But don't you think that the technology is relevant? I mean, we can get to it after this, but like I feel like even though like the first wave of this whole NFT crypto thing fell apart.
That's my point. We're actually saying the same thing. Blockchain in and of itself has use.
Yes.
Health records, like there's a million things you can do with it that aren't necessarily like pictures of apes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I was like, let's put a blockchain node in every post office. So that way, because there's a data center in Salt Lake City that keeps track of all the mail and where it is. Ever since anthrax hit the White House in the 90s, they've been tracking every piece of mail like about 19 or 20 steps back in the process. So what if every single American had a portal that you could log into to see where things are and automatically just see like a tracking number type of thing?
Right.
If I say to you, checks in the mail, you're like, I'm refreshing. I don't see it yet. What do you mean? Like the system already tracks it all. So if we just do the Doc Brown on the clock tower and we connect that data to a portal where you can send federal email or physical copies for an upcharge or registered copies for an upcharge, and you had the ability to see what was coming. Like I came up with informed delivery back in 2009 or 10.
Yeah, I get the informed delivery emails.
Yeah. Guess who put that in the suggestion box?
You did.
On their website.
Wow.
For real. So that was like one of the reasons that they were able to take it a little more seriously is because I actually had, it was a 28-point plan. They took that one and then it became a 27-point plan.
It doesn't tell you everything that's in the mail.
No.
It tells you like a few things.
It wasn't supposed to. It was supposed to tease you to go to the website so you would spend more on services. It was about, my ultimate thing was how to take it from 500,000 federal employees to 650,000 federal employees that got to keep their benefits and please all 7 unions, because without the support of the unions and without the support of the people in Washington, it was never going to be able to get done. I had to say this is not a gun, a fetus, a healthcare plan, or somebody from another country. This is a home run for everybody. Like the people in Washington, they said this is a home run, cradled gently to sleep by a slam dunk and like coochie cooed by a touchdown. Like this is perfect. it was just not at the right time.
Yeah, timing's everything, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me ask you this. As someone who embodies that fusion of technology and personal authenticity, what words of wisdom or guidance would you offer individuals that are looking to make a meaningful impact in both their professional and personal lives?
Listen to the things that people aren't saying but mean to say.
Interesting.
English language has like 1.3 or 1.4 million words in it. But when somebody tells you they're angry, are they upset? Are they pissed? Are they furious? Are they seething? There's like 60 different ways to tell somebody that you're upset. And we all just say, "Oh, I'm pissed at that guy."
Yeah.
You know? There's levels to the way that you feel. You know, I so deeply care about you, Ariel. Like it's like with your eyes.
I believe you.
I know you do. But there's a ways to express things to somebody. Like I remember one time Ryan SERHANT wrote me an email once, and he said he used the word disturbing about something that I had done wrong. Oh man,
what was it?
It doesn't matter, Ariel. It wasn't anything cancelable. It was just like it was a learning process for me in becoming a chief of title at a company that was growing, and I said the wrong thing about something. Everybody makes mistakes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm also.
Well, you like put it in writing?
To him, it was just private. He was just like, that was like, don't speak that way about that topic.
Yeah.
And I needed to learn. It was also a conversion process from me being a consultant to other people to, no, I have to treat this company like it's mine because it is.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And he already was, because it's his name, it's his brand, it's all this stuff. It was natural for him. And he was like, so it's like when somebody says, it's a classic example. It's like a meme in our culture. It's like, I'm not mad at you. I'm just disappointed. And it hurts worse.
Yeah.
Language that you use is important. So when people are communicating with you, think about what they might mean to say. Another example would be a colleague of mine. It was back in October. I said, "Hey, did you do that thing that I asked you to do last week? What's the status update on that?" And he says back to me, he says, "I didn't, I haven't had the time, and I'm not going to be able to do it after all. Like, don't count on me. Any complaints, please direct them to finance and HR." Whoa. Now, a lot of people would react negatively to that. What I said was, "Oh, my guy, that must have been really hard for you to have to say. What are you going through? Do you want to talk?"
Yeah. Wow. So you really responded the right way.
Yeah, because it's when it's so unlike somebody.
Yeah.
Like there's modifiers. Somebody can be their ideal self, or they can be hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And you should halt if you're any one of those things. HALT. You should halt if you're hungry, angry, lonely, tired, and not do important things or send that email or that text that you want to tell a client, I don't want to work with you. Or
and
you're
did he
too
talk
difficult.
to you? Did he tell you what he was going through?
Yeah, he did. He did. I'm like the unofficial staff psychologist and known as like the empathy, feelings guy.
Yeah.
Ryan used to call me like the soothsayer. He'd be like, "Is everything okay with like the staff and the agents?" Because he'd be on a trip or whatever. Say, "Is the company all right?" And they're like, "Yeah, no, the vibe is good." Because he knows I keep tabs on it that way and I check in with people. So I would recommend. You said what advice? Listen for what people are not saying, right? Read in between the lines. Don't take everything they're saying literally. Think about, why is this person saying that? What must be going on, right? It's not always with ill intent or malintent. And then also ask, what does my team need from me right now as a leader, right? Not just what do I need from them? What do they need from me? Is it clearer communication? Is it more direction? Is it something that's in writing?
Like really introspect on it.
Yeah, introspect on how you can get to where it's more effortless.
Right.
You're not going to be psychic ever. I mean, well, unless Elon has his way. But, you.
What do you think of that, by the way, Neuralink?
Neuralink? I mean, depending on the fatality numbers, I might go for it.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. It's interesting.
It's interesting. The guy's brilliant. He really is.
I'm excited for all the people who can't use a computer in a typical way, right? People who aren't physiotypical,
it's New York.
It's very New York. It's a very New York show. It's how you know.
It's a very angry truck driver.
Very angry. Very angry. He's like, "Come on."
He's probably hungry, angry, lonely, or tired.
He's one of those. The other one's late. You can do Hull. But yeah, I think asking what they need from you to be more effective for them is a question that I ask all the time. Ryan asks all the time. It's one of the reasons he's so effective. But also making space, right? You have to create space for feedback. You have to create space for people to push back on you. Feedback and pushback are not the same thing, right? So frequently, I will make sure I go out of my way to have a safe spot in the conversation or reach out to somebody for like a BS reason, but over the phone. Right. And be like, hey, listen, while I have you, like, tell me how's everything going? Anything I can do to make your stay at Chateau SERHANT any more pleasurable with your hospitality, you know? And all of a sudden people open up. Whether it's an agent who says like, yeah, I've been looking for this, or somebody, or I could use more help with that. And then you find out something that you wouldn't have found out. Or it's a staffer who doesn't want to sound like they're whining, because they're not. They don't want to sound like they're whining. They don't want to sound weak. They want to be passed over for a promotion, a horizontal promotion, or, you know, to get a reputation. Right. Businesses that move quick and grow quick, and this is so common across all the startups I ever consulted and helped build, even before I became full-time at SERHANT. There's a perception of you're either iron-stomached or you're not. And I think that we have a problem in this country of like not making space just for mental health, of course, but also for, you're not always at your best, but it doesn't mean that you're not eligible for the big chair. Like you should be allowed to have a moment, as long as it's not like egregious, embarrassing, or illegal. One of the ways I frame this to the staff is that I've never actually repeated something or given up somebody's name on something that you share with me. I have an impeccable reputation for nobody ever found out where the information came from. Okay? Yeah. Or else people will stop telling me. It's very simple logic. Yeah. What do I have to gain from diming you out other than people will stop telling me things? Right. I have a reputation for keeping things to myself. Yeah. Okay. So that's number one. You're in a safe spot. I may ask for your permission to do something about what you tell me without saying where it came from. Because the people that I work with at the highest levels know that if I'm saying that something needs to be done, it's not for no reason. And they should just take my word for it. Like Ryan doesn't even ask me how I know stuff anymore. He knows I just won't give anybody up. Yeah. Or let them down. That's where Rick Astley got the song from. It was my idea. But sure enough, I'll say to them, I want you to know if there is anything that you're struggling with, my ears don't hear it as whining. I hear it as that you have a deep passion for making sure that the service quality and delivery of your department or your position is something that's very important to you, and that you think that it represents a risk to our reputation or the company or the brand or Ryan himself, that there's something up or on the horizon about the capacity of your position. I don't hear that you're overworked. I hear that you are looking out for all of us by flagging that we may need another resource or another way to go about something or a different process because it's causing a bottleneck that you perceive as a drop in quality that could cost us revenue, recruiting, or retention.
Yeah, like in its simplest form, you really just deploy the personal touch. You know, and I think that's also what makes Ryan very effective. And you touched on that. Like, you know, for me, I'll get like these random emails from Ryan, just like randomly, like, hey, how you doing? Is everything okay? You know, like, yeah. And it's like, I really appreciate that. Granted, I'm sure he's copying and pasting that email to a lot of people.
You'd be surprised. people joke that to me. They're just like, is this really him? Yes. Yeah. He cares very deeply about that.
I believe that very much. And I believe he's an exceptional leader. But I believe that because both of you sort of take that position, that's why the leadership is so strong at SERHANT. You know, it really is. And listen, I was at Element for 9 years, you know, and Element's one of the biggest shops. So coming to SERHANT, there was like a natural level of a little bit of skepticism. Like I was very intrigued by the idea of coming to a new company that, you know, is on its way up and to be part of something, to be part of like a growing club, if you will. But it's pretty incredible the way you guys have structured everything, and you know the machine that you've built. It's really amazing.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely on purpose. We want to look like it's together, and we're really happy that it is now. Yeah. Like in the beginning, you know, we were really like Ryan compares 2020 to being like a baby chick, just got out of the egg and like chirping around all stumbly. Yeah. He compares 2021 to like a baby deer learning how to walk. He compares, 2022 was to like a racing dog. We were trying to move really fast, like tongue hanging out of our mouth and just going crazy, dirt flying everywhere. 2023 was like we were starting to really soar. And now 2024 is like the year of the Falcon for us.
Yeah.
Like speed, grace, and like lethality.
I kind of feel that way about my own career. Like I feel like 2024 is going to be huge.
Yeah.
And I feel like I spent so much of 2023 just like preparing for like this moment of 2024. So I love that. I feel like very aligned with where SERHANT's at.
You got to pick your animals, man.
Yeah. Tell me about Simple, because I saw Ryan's email last night that went out about it. I know you've been like hot on the topic because you've been talking about it at Inman, but tell me a little bit about it and how is that going to make my life easier?
Well, that's the thing. We started asking ourselves, how could we be a better brokerage for you, right? Ryan's talked a lot about how people are obsessed with saying how they're going to make the agent better. Where you're just an app away, now AI is going to come change everything. The industry is very obsessed with buzzwords, right? Years ago, it was virtual staging was going to change everything. 3D tours were going to change everything. Even the metaverse and all the different stuff we did with SERHANT Universe was going to change everything.
Are you still working on that, or is that kind of on the back burner?
It's on the back burner.
Yeah,
I think that Meta really fucked it up for everybody.
Because conceptually, it makes a lot of sense. Like if you're building a new development and you want to tour people through sample homes, like it's a great concept.
That was one of the things we wanted to do. We wanted to take our education, our media, actual listings, of course, like all the different things that make us special. And we believe we have the right content to do a virtual world properly that would give users a real reason to want to spend time in it and to get value out of that. But I don't think society is ready for that yet. I think what is actually important for people right now that work-life balance and the need to grow and to be more creative, one of the things that Ryan says, and that also Tarcisio Nascimento, our director of high-ticket sales for the education side of the business, says is, the market should never dictate your goals. It should only dictate your strategy.
Yeah, I love that. And I use that line.
Right. So the same thing is true with me, is that the moment of now, it doesn't dictate the way that I want to arm people with the right technology as the CTO of the company. It just dictates my strategy.
Yes.
So the strategy back then was, all right, if we're not able to spend as much time in person, I'll focus on giving people a way that I can bridge the connection when they're not able to be together in person, right? So everybody was going through a different version up here in New York than I was going through in Florida. In Florida, it was like people acted like COVID didn't exist in a lot of places.
Yeah.
Right? So I had to take care of home base in a way that I needed to bridge that. It was kind of like me taking my jacket off so you could walk over the puddle.
Yeah.
You guys were all the damsel that I was trying to make sure I impressed on the date.
You put the team on your back.
I he's got the shoulders for it. You know what I'm saying? So, but then it changes. It changes in terms of we listened more. We became a more diverse group. What I learned from all the real estate experience I had before, all the real estate experience from this company and from supporting Ryan, and as the agent team grew, I realized that I had this idea for creating something that we'll talk about and probably still build, that was going to be like an ultimate integrations platform. And then the more that I talk to people, I'm like, okay, so the market, they need to be putting even more time, probably for the foreseeable future. Even if it gets better, it's not going to get perfect for, a while longer. What if we just totally changed the game? What if we didn't need $800 million from SoftBank to build the thing that actually solves the problems? What if the answer isn't just throwing more apps and screens at you and asking for trainings or calling people out on like, oh yeah, the thing that you're trying to do, our systems already do that. We just need to show you how. What if we forget all that and just offer to do it all for you? Why isn't the brokerage basically kissing the ground that you walk on for the fact that you're bringing in the money? And we don't eat without you eating. We don't succeed without you succeeding. I don't take it for granted that I get a biweekly paycheck and that you don't know when your next closing or your next meal is coming from, right?
Yeah.
So how can we simplify your life? How can we make it so simple that you're able to avoid needing to create your own infrastructure, your own person or people that you want to get on a team to support you and have to train them and manage them and do the HR and all this different stuff, and make it where we know about your preferences and how you like stuff done. We're keeping that the same, and you're going to hear some allegories back to the way that the IT department was run and created in the first place in terms of tailoring itself to each person, right? So we look at all right, if we can understand our consumer, our customer, psychology of them, the way that they like to do business, we can make sure to build processes around taking all the work off your plate, so all you have to do is ask, and it's done the way that you want it done the first time. The same way that our tech teams have offered to do all kinds of stuff for you, so you don't have to learn it or do it. So we piloted this in a way with Ryan for years. Like, we have all these great people. We helped Ryan get to be number one in all these different ways. He's like the Tony Stark of real estate, the TV shows, all this different stuff. How can we give every single agent at SERHANT
Empower them the same way.
Yeah, with all those same resources, where he doesn't have to think about all the different ways to make it happen. We have commander's intent.
Yeah.
And then the rest of us execute and know how to make it happen. So if we take a special blend of 11 herbs and spices, so to speak, of technology, humans and some AI and some different this, but it's not a tech story, okay? And it's not just a human story, it's a support story. So the simple app is really just a gateway into you knowing that everything is being done the right way, so that you can delegate confidently for the first time. Everybody, in my entire career, my 21 years of supporting real estate agents, I'm 37, okay? 21 years supporting real estate agents. The number one thing has been, how do I know that they're actually doing what they're supposed to do? And I might as well just do it myself, or I'm going to be correcting it or redoing it or different kinds of stuff. And it's great that there's this new app or this new solution, but I don't want to have to learn it. Who has the time to master all these tools?
There's always something new coming out.
So what if we just make it that we have SERHANT employees, that their whole thing is they're the incredible, they develop the mastery and the prowess over all the latest and greatest tools. And I take all the things that I've learned from hospitality of technology and service and ticketing and routing and dispatch, and the way to have somebody who gets so good at doing something in 5 minutes that would have taken you 5 hours, or different versions of that. And we build it into a way that I can have these advisors that are W-2 employees of SERHANT, that the system knows who the right person to assign it to is. And if it's even something as simple as coordinating with another internal department, you don't have to think. You just know what you need. Ariel, would you rather that I go out and I ask Masa from SoftBank, I pull an Adam Newman, or whatever, or something that rhymes with schmampus, right? And I go out and I want millions of dollars to custom develop another thing that you have to learn? Or would you rather get back to having conversations like this with people like me or your clients, or whatever? Like, whatever you want to do at that time. What would you do if you had more time? I'm asking you.
Yeah, I know. I take a lot of comfort in those words, because I definitely don't want to be one of those real estate agents that's bouncing from firm to firm. Like, I like sustainability. I like stability overall, so I take a lot of comfort knowing that you guys are thinking about all this stuff.
Yeah.
That you're being mindful of all this stuff and kind of putting yourself into the mind of the agent, as opposed to just like being, an IT fixer, like most of these guys are.
My dad ran a title company from 1991 to 2016. That's where I learned IT.
Yes, you also know a little bit about real estate coming into this.
In fact, did you know Jen Elise, our head of new development, her mother was a title closer for my dad's abstract company for a year.
What a small world.
We had no idea. Jen's job before she worked with Ryan was at First American Abstract, where she worked for my cousin Dale.
Wow, that's
We
cool.
didn't know this until we already worked together under Ryan for like 2-3 years.
Wow.
Small world, right?
Small world.
It's written in the stars. This company was bound to be founded. Okay. And sure enough, I remember when I was starting to learn IT, from taking that curiosity. Always stay curious. Curiosity is so important.
Yes.
Take that curiosity. I was helping and learning IT for his title company when the mortgage company down the hall needed some help. I started helping. So I learned a little about the mortgage business. Then I started learning about and helping real estate agents and brokerages. And then I was like, wow, I'm working with so many real estate agents and brokerages. I better start a real estate marketing company. So I ran one.
I was going to say, did you ever think of joining the dance?
Yeah. I never thought about getting licensed.
Yeah.
I did sales for a year when I was 19 for a freight forwarding company, where I would call warm leads. And my first sales job was selling spots on car carriers, like you see on the highway. I got paid $25 per sale if I called somebody and convinced them to ship their car with one of our trucks. $25 a sale. I usually did like 4 sales a day or something like that. And then one day, one guy called in and he has a Jeep that he wants to send to Warsaw, Poland. And I went to my dispatcher and I said to the guy, I said, actually, it was Natalie. Natalie was her name. Coincidentally, I work with Natalie now as our CFO. But I went to Natalie. I said, I got an international on the phone. What do we? I never saw anything about that. What do we do if it's an international? How do I quote that? She says, well, we don't do international. It's a pain in the ass. So I go into my boss's office. Her name is Tina. She drove a Land Rover. She did really well for herself. And I poked my head and I said, hey, Tina, can I do an international? She says, oh, it's a real pain. Like, we don't do it. I said, but if I can figure it out, can I like make the money and like, we'll work out a commission thing. If you can figure it out in a way that it can be fine, even though we don't have a license and all this different stuff, statute of limitations, I hope, is passed on this. So I go back to the phone. The guy was on hold. I said, listen, my dispatcher is out to lunch. This is 2006. This is happening. My dispatcher's out to lunch. I would love to give you a quote for sending your Jeep Cherokee to Warsaw, Poland. But I need an hour. So I go on Google and I look up how to
shipping
export
cars to
a car.
Poland.
Yeah. So I find this company called AES, Auto Export Shippers. Guess what they do, right? And they're in Bayonne, New Jersey. So I call them up and I got a real old timer on the phone. I could hear it in his voice and I'm like, this is perfect. They love to talk.
They just put it on a boat and send it over there?
Yeah, so I'm like 18, 19 years old. I have this green spiral notebook and I still have the notebook with all the notes in it, okay? So I open this notebook to a fresh page and I say to the guy, listen, this is going to sound weird. I have a Jeep Cherokee that I need to bring to Warsaw, Poland. I have to go back there. I have some things I need to do with my family. This is the first car I ever learned to work on. And I opened up my own mechanic business after that. It's what inspired me to get into fixing cars. I know it may not sound like a very important thing because it's just a Jeep Cherokee, but it's my baby. So I need you to walk me through the process of what's going to go on to send this thing overseas. Like I'm 5 years old. Explain it to me blow by blow so I can visualize it and I can reach a level of comfort about what's going to happen every step of the way. Just walk me through it. The guy says, well, sure. And like 45 minutes later, I'm like done taking notes. My wrist hurts. Thank you so much. I'm going to call you back to book it. You really made me feel. So I call back the first guy and I say, listen, my dispatcher got back. We got to it. But before we get to the money, I don't know why you're shipping this car. I can only imagine that you have a really important reason. But before we get there, just because of that, if I were you, I would want the anxiety quelled of knowing everything that's going to happen. So let me walk you through the process blow by blow, every step of the way so that you can visualize it. And I repeated it all back as if I was the expert who had all this stuff, right? So he books it for, it was like, I don't know, like $4,500. We were going to make like over 100% profit on it, whatever. I go into Tina's office. I say, I booked the thing to Warsaw and I got the whole thing done. It's going to be done through the people. We don't even need a license. It's just I'm brokering the thing, whatever. And she was like, what? So then a few weeks later, the name of the company was changed to have the word logistics on the end. And she let me hire 3 of my friends. And we had a whole international sales division at this company. And we were doing things to Ghana and to all kinds of places.
That's cool, man.
But I got it all out of my system. From then on, I was like, I just wanted to build
no more sales.
No, listen, I go on recruiting calls with SERHANT now. Yeah. We're always selling ourselves to the world.
I was going to say, I would bring you on a pitch with me, 100%.
Dude, I would. Nothing would be my honor greater.
Especially like on a new dev pitch, like when I like being like I just jumped on 200 Amsterdam, and we launched it only like 2-3 weeks ago. But seeing like how well organized new dev is with everything,
they're so on top of their stuff. Yeah. My God, are they on top of their game?
They are.
We have the best new dev division in the world.
It's a well-oiled machine. It's a really well-oiled machine.
It's not close. It's not close. I mean, what they've done.
Wow.
Yeah.
You spend a lot of time staring at screens. When I spend a lot of time staring at screens, it exhausts me. How do you decompress or get away from the work a little bit? What do you like to do outside of work?
Man, there's a few things that are near and dear to me that way. Probably the number one thing is cooking.
I was going to say, I know you like to cook.
I didn't get this way by accident. This was all delicious. Okay. Nothing passes these lips that isn't like absolutely chef's kiss emoji.
I'm a big fan of the kitchen.
Yeah, me too. Like I just booked for my birthday. I told my family, don't get me anything. I'm buying myself something, and I got one of those like 700 layer Damascus steel knives that I spent like way too much money on.
Like the folded steel knives,
bro. This thing
that stuff's cool. Yeah.
This thing, like some people are into cars, some people are into. I'm a very simple person. Give me a fast internet connection, a fast computer,
sharp knife,
and a sharp as fuck kitchen knife. Like I'm made in the shape.
Yeah.
So cooking is a big one, obviously, for my family.
Yeah.
I think that the two number one ways that you can show love and appreciation for somebody is to be available for them when they need you.
To break bread with them.
And to cook for them, because what else is a literal way to nourish them and help them grow than to feed them something delicious that makes them feel incredibly satisfied and that you can taste the effort that went into it.
I'm really with you. I get a lot of fulfillment out of cooking for people and cooking for my family. I love making breakfast for my girls.
Totally.
You know, I really.
Why does a peanut butter and jelly sandwich taste better if somebody else made it?
Yeah, I know, right?
Other than a bodega. Bodega PB&J is not the same thing. I'm talking about like a homemade PB&J. That
or like, you know those people that go into it. Like, you ever stand on the line at the bagel store and you hear someone order a PB&J at the bagel store and you're like, what are you doing?
I just imagine biting into that and the jelly is just going every place. Yeah. I'm talking like a really well-crafted, somebody thought it through, that they were, serving this to somebody they care about. So that's wonderful. The cooking, the time with the kids. We like Disney a lot. Living 2.5 hours from the parks and being a pass holder is fun.
I was gonna say, how'd you end up in Florida, and why is that your home?
Oh, we're getting into the nitty gritty part of the conversation.
Let's do it.
So in I don't know which version of the story to tell. The version of the story to tell that is true, but is less of a traumatic walk through the period of my life that was 2015 to 2018. My dad moved there. I was a lot closer with my mom until that point in my life, and it was kind of like my dad's turn. I always thought about, if I don't spend the extra time with him, I'll wish I did. So I got a house that was 5 minutes away. Wow. And my wife happened to have a cousin that was a few minutes away. She didn't get along great with her family, so she was like, sayonara.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Ryan was a little anxious. He was like, but you're leaving? And I was like, no, baby, I promise I'll be back all the time. This is 2018. It was traumatic. And it was before it was cool to move to Florida.
Yeah, it was also like before, like, it was cool to work remotely.
Way before.
Yeah.
I had always done that.
Now it's like you could be in Antarctica.
Oh, yeah.
No one would notice.
Nobody cares. It wasn't until COVID that people stopped caring. But it was like, please stay as far away as you can. But it was a big risk I was taking. I had a lot of demons about like leaving New York. It was whoa. It's if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere.
Yeah.
Why am I fleeing? Like I'm a Jew from New York. I'm moving away to Florida 30 years too soon. It felt like.
Yeah.
So my other big reason was family health and wellness. I became a workaholic to avoid dealing with my problems at home. My career flourished, ironically, because of ignoring what I really should have spent time working through in my marriage and learning how to be a better part of the family unit.
Yeah.
Right? And because of a lot of decisions that I made, my family became so unhealthy. My wife became sick, right? And struggled with all different kinds of stuff. To the point that I needed to push the reset button on the family and just completely change everything.
Yeah.
Almost ended my marriage, what we were going through. February 2018. I'll never forget. It was February 5th, 2018. She gave the ring back and we called it quits.
Wow.
After like 6 months of will we, won't we, let's make some commitments. I sold my small businesses to be home more and made the promise I'd be around more often. We got through really dark times, and I thought we were on the way to things being better, but they got better, they got worse in other ways. And the next day after we called it quits, I had to give a keynote at IBM's headquarters in Armonk.
Wow.
So I'm crying.
To focus on
that. Yeah, I'm crying, driving up to IBM, about to present to like 10,000 people. It was a couple thousand in person, and it was like another 8,000 on whatever I think they were using like WebEx Citrix or whatever it was at the time. And I remember like crying in the cafeteria after my presentation was over to the head of mechanical engineering of IBM, who was like, hey, buddy, you want to go see Watson? Would that make you feel better? And I'm like, yeah, it would. That's really nice of you. Thank you so much. They didn't ask me back after that, but that isn't the point. The point is, it took about 6 weeks to realize my own role, right? Because it was too easy to blame substances and partying that I was also part of in certain ways. Like my son would be at my mom's house, right? And we would catch up on I had my first child at 22, 23. So it was like my wife and I spent a lot of our 20s arguing about who stole whose 20s from who.
Right.
So we would like recapture that whenever he would go to grandma's house. We would, party together and catch up in that way, immaturely, but in a way that we weren't in love. It wasn't really a solve on what we were really trying to get to the bottom of. And I think when things came crashing down in a bunch of ways, it caused me to take stock in a new way of my role in that, my own culpability, that I was aware I played a part, but not to the extent that I realized once I was actually thinking and facing what life would be like raising my son on my own. And then remembering my parents split up when I was 7 years old. And my son at the time was 7 years old. And I'm thinking, am I just repeating the cycle? I'm a child of divorce. She's a child of divorce. Divorce rate 64, 65%. It's too easy to run. And I said, people constantly tell me that I'm capable of anything I want to do. What if one of those things that I'm capable of is snatching victory from the jaws of defeat on my own marriage, my own life?
Yeah.
So I decided to do the hard work and stay. And I begged her for another chance. And I told her I was going to change in all the ways and blah, blah, blah. And then I also said, listen, I think it would be really good for us if we moved to Florida. Be close to my dad. I want to spend time with him anyway. Be close to your cousin who you miss, who moved down there. I got a couple of sisters down there with their families. Quiet. We'll get away from all the people and all the temptation and all the different stuff.
Change of scenery.
Change of scenery. Get no more seasonal affective disorder, from the seasons change, which got her. It's a whole thing. So it was a really big catharsis for our family. And the first 9 years of our marriage were, I wouldn't say miserable, but miserable adjacent.
It was work.
It was too much work.
Yeah.
And then just to get to, but they were worth it.
Get to
the paradise of the last 5. But that's my point. Like to get to the paradise of the last 5 years, it was worth those first 9. Because we fell in love for the first time as a result of the work that we put in then.
That's a beautiful story, honestly, that you guys you went on that journey and you've arrived at a place where you found that bliss in your marriage. Last week I had a rabbi come on this podcast, and
sitting in a holy chair, I didn't know.
Yeah. And I asked him, I said, what is the one piece of advice you would give to young couples of this generation? And he said, listen, marriage takes work. It takes a lot of work to reach the point of getting married, where you've decided to get married and you work up to the wedding, and then there's planning the wedding. But then a lot of people just think that the work stops from there, that the marriage is secure in its commitment.
Yeah.
But it's just not, that's not the case. Like, marriage takes a lot of work. And, what I also realized is that I have everything. I'm chasing my next check, right? And I'm stressing myself out when I'm running out of cash or when expenses are piling up.
You're a different person with money in your pocket than when you don't have money in your pocket. Absolutely.
Sure. But at the same time, sometimes when you don't have money in your pocket, it's important to just take a step back and realize that we still have everything.
Oh, yeah. Roof over your head. I mean, totally.
We have everything. We have family. We work in New York City. Mm-hmm. I have a great business, and I have everything I need. I have the air in my lungs, and I have my health. This is that puts a lot into perspective.
It does. I want to take the marriage thing further for a second.
Please.
I think that not only is anything in life worth having something that's going to take effort and work, and marriage is no exception to that. But I actually think that you are asked, not out loud, you're asked by your life, if you want to marry the same person over and over again as they evolve.
Yes.
You don't stay the same person that you married, and they, neither do they.
Yeah.
You ever go to the carnival and you shoot the water at the thing and it makes the horses go?
Yeah, or the balloons blow up.
Yeah. People change at different rates.
Yeah.
You're not going to stay the same. So what happens is you have these challenges that come up. And I experienced this many times. My career would go like this, and she wasn't super into it. Or she'd become this kind of new creative and want to explore this side of her, and I wasn't ready to match her level of enthusiasm for something. This happens in every relationship, where it's just like the horses or the balloons at the carnival filling up with the water, that people move and change. And every time that happens, the person who's not growing and changing is asked if they want to put up with that, if they're okay with that, if they're willing to co-sign that change. And if they're willing to take it just for what it is, that it's going to feel a little threatening.
Yes.
That the person that you know is becoming less familiar, whatever that means. Could be good, could be bad, whatever it is. So as that happens, if the gap gets so wide because the other person is stagnating, right? This person is willing to take more chances and willing to go, and the other person really is just doesn't want to go with that. Well, that's when you start to get they call it the fabric of society, because when you rub it together, you get static from the friction.
Yeah.
Right? So that happens in a marriage too, where you're called upon by the situation, where you're that far apart. Do you want to try to find a common ground again? Because you're not trying to change somebody necessarily.
Yeah.
You're asking them to meet you halfway. That's what compromise really is can we accept that my life or my personality or my being is doing this? Are you cool with that? I'm okay with the fact that you're having a hard time with it.
Yeah.
But let's also, back to the English language, there's a very big difference between envy and jealousy. Envy is wanting something somebody else has. And jealousy is being fearful that something that you already have could be ripped from you. Which jealousy doesn't just come in from cheating or wandering eye or from another person. Jealousy is also the person that you are aligned with, that you have, that you're familiar with, being ripped away from you by their own growth sometimes. And unless we're creating space and checking in to say, hey, let's talk about this because you're entitled to voice this, and I don't want to wait until it's a shouting match.
Yeah.
I think we should all, for example, when I got cast in our Netflix show, I said to my wife, let's talk about this because I'm going to be sometimes traveling just for filming. And it won't just be for the love of the game or for my regular job or whatever it is. I might get recognized in Costco. It could get annoying in certain ways for you. We don't know. We just don't know. So I had to make sure that we sit and we do a check-in on, is this something that we're okay with? Do you have feelings about this? Please express your concerns so I could at least be aware, even if I don't have a way to mitigate them. Let's make your feelings real and respect and honor them by airing them out and just acknowledging that we've got these considerations so that we're not like this.
Yeah.
And that you're into that it'll equalize at some point.
Like you've put in all this work to create like a synchronicity in your marriage, and now there's
over and over.
There's like a state of flow.
You're asked if you want to remarry them as they change throughout the marriage, and sometimes the answer is no. And that's okay if that's really where you decide, because your boundaries are. But I think it's important to remind that the anxiety of saying yes when you don't want to, if it's an abusive situation, if it's a dangerous situation, absolutely you need to go to safety and get help, absolutely. But if it's not those danger situations, sometimes you need to just be a little bit more forgiving. I think that relationships based on forgiveness are very important.
Yeah. It sounds to me like a great deal of the empathy that you deploy in your work, with the agents at SERHANT, and what we touched on in kind of the beginning of the conversation, a lot of that is kind of born in the lessons you've learned in your marriage.
100%. 100%. I was a very different person before I met her. I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for my wife. She actually used to accuse herself and me of somehow holding me back, when it was the opposite. She made me the best possible version of myself because I've learned more about myself and how I want to show up to the world and what I'm capable of, because of the things that we've overcome and raising two beautiful children together. And the hard times, they teach you so much more about yourself than the good times do.
Yes. Well said. Well said, my friend. Wow. Let's see. What else we got here?
Anything you want. Technology, real estate, whatever.
Honestly, this has been a fantastic conversation. Even though we veered off of technology, I try to take the conversation to a more personal place.
Sure.
But what's next for you? What's next for you in the world in your career, in tech? I know it's with SERHANT.
Yeah. No, I what's next for me is more is more growth and stability for the company. I want to make sure that what I'm building is not only something that stands the test of time, and that myself and the rest of my partners that I work with every day, and that we care so much to build this lattice for you and the rest of the agents to grow on as vines and to just keep expanding. That's what it really is. You're the ivy that will keep climbing if we build the lattice that's a strong foundation for you to rise up. That's the goal. How do we fortify that? How do we make sure that we're redefining what it means so that we're not competing on crap that somebody else could just clone? What is it about us that makes us special, and how can we amplify it to help amplify you? Leading by certain example. I'm a company man. Like I wouldn't be working with Ryan for this long if I had a problem or had an issue being able to stand the guy. He actually signed my birthday card a couple of years ago. Once in a while he calls me Ryan because he thinks it's more respectful, even though I don't actually mind. But he signed my birthday card when he says thank you for everything you do. I know I'm a lot, but so are you. Because or
that's funny.
Or
I like that.
One of us passing each other will flick each other on the back of the ear like we're college kids or whatever it is. Like we're good. Yeah. We're good peoples like that.
You could tell that you guys are well connected. Even like at the event the other night on 22nd Street, I walked by you guys when you're having a conversation. It's just you could tell you guys are very interconnected. And you have a special bond.
I was like, what's this place going for? He says, $68 million. And I was like, can I have a $68 million advance? He goes, talk to Josh. And he pats me on the back and walks away. So, but yeah, no, I'm very fortunate to have formed a relationship with him and Jen and the rest of the leadership team. We have an incredible rapport. I mean, going back to the beginning, all the OGs that started it, Puma and Adrian and so many, that I want to see it through.
Yeah.
This is the dream job. I'm so fulfilled that I get to public speak. I get to build awesome tech. I get to work with incredible people. I get to be the kind of nurturer and be that kind of source of wisdom and guidance for my dev team, my other tech teams, like anybody who wants to sit on the coin couch for a second. I'm in the car driving the company. I'm not just yelling, "Are we there yet?" from the back seat. I have one of my hands on the wheel. So it touches every part of what I want to do for a living. I get to be part of the education stuff. Both my parents, my mom taught for 40 years. My dad taught for 11. That's part of me. So I want to see it through. I want to grow it appropriately, not crazy fast, but when the fit is right. I want to partner with great people and keep that same vibe going. And I want to see what we're capable of as continuing to influence the industry. Like Ariel, I was in the room when Ryan and the rest of the creatives decided to take real estate to new media, and they defined the genre.
Yes.
It wouldn't have happened. Like he almost single-handedly, not completely single-handedly, there's a lot of people involved, but he almost single-handedly made real estate something that you could be a rock star.
Yeah.
It's like the Iron Man thing. I compare him to. It's like people either want to be him, with him, or like him, or at least whatever it is.
It's kind of like what Gordon Ramsay did for The Chef.
Totally.
It's like, it was never cool to be a chef,
Or if it was, it was something that was looked at as like a gimmick as opposed to like an artistry.
Yes.
Like movies like The Menu wouldn't have had that twist.
That movie was fucked up.
It was fucked up. but in the beginning, you're just like, okay, this is like kind of like they're playing on the trope of the person. Or like The Chef's Table on Netflix, right? Where they have I
love that show.
Dude, I know. You need to eat before you watch that show, or else you're going to have a hole in your TV with teeth marks, But I think that for us, it's about what's going to happen to influence where the industry is going to go again. I think Simple has a lot to do with that for us, the app. We want everybody to be asking the question about what their brokerage is doing to help save them time. Putting kind of a bug in everybody's brain about that, I think is important. And to change it up.
At what point does SERHANT reach a capacity issue?
I mean, we reach a capacity issue all the time. And
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we're a mobile forced company, right? There's not a lot of space to work. Like for me, myself, like I rent this office, so I have a little bit of overhead because for me personally, I need my space.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Back to marriage again?
Just kidding. Yeah. So at what point does SERHANT maybe consider that?
We talk about it all the time. Not only
I know Paul is passionate about it.
Like yes, no, asking Paul about that topic. I hope you brought a warm beverage and a blanket because you're going to be there a while. No, the conversation when we got the office in the first place was one of, all right, 15,000 square feet should last us a while, and then it like worked out, and we were like, oh my god, it's not enough. So the decision to get the office at Hudson Street, to get 60 of the staff over to there, and now we have the third floor with more space that are bookable. Now we have the lower Laval, which has some bookable space. And then also the Huron model's moving out soon, and then we're refurnishing that and making that into another conference room with another meeting bar and stuff.
It's good that they moved ID Lab to the Hudson space because you can't put creators in a basement.
You can. They're not going to love it forever. At first they thought it was like it was like nightclubby with the neon signs.
Yeah, but then when you
I
don't see the light of
like
day.
I actually looked at like digital skylights, like that they have them for certain places.
That's cool. Yeah.
But I was like, no. So the plan was always that they were going to outgrow the space and that we were going to outgrow the space. But it's important to have like that central hub of the clubhouse, and it's important for us to have additional spaces when it's appropriate. So we're always evaluating. For example, like the next event that we have is probably going to be a place that we have nearby, as opposed to trying to cram everybody into 372, for example.
Yeah, like the place like this, you could rent 10 offices, 10 of these, for cheap. And
listen, you got the wrong guy. I'm not in charge of the decision, but I'm telling you, as far as the conversation, it's an ongoing, evolving conversation. Every single week, we have a weekly ops and systems meeting where Renee talks about the latest with facilities, and she's so on top of everything with operations for the company. We do have an app called Envoy, which is the same app that's used by a lot of co-working spaces and things like that to monitor space usage and frequency of visits. And we have all the badge scans for how many people are coming to the office. We have a report on that and stuff. So we have basically what we call the agent utilization tracker. And I know how frequently everybody's using everything from Microsoft to the card swipes to come into the building, everything except for the coffee machine, So we're able to kind of look at that and do our best to stay ahead of it and make big, bold decisions about space when it's called for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like what you were saying in the beginning about that system that tells you like everything you need to know about the agent, based on their behaviors, on their web behaviors.
43,000 websites have records on you.
Wow. I got to see what it looks like, what my file looks like.
I could send it to you after for sure.
Yeah.
There's definitely data brokers are one of the most common like cash cow companies that no one's ever heard of.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of services like Delete Me and Incogni, like you see YouTube ads for them all the time now.
Yeah.
I signed Ryan up for one of those because a fan got a hold of his cell phone number over Thanksgiving and was calling him every 13 seconds on repeat for 2.5 days straight. He had to put his phone on Do Not Disturb because he couldn't use his phone without it constantly being ringing for 3 days.
I'm assuming like Ryan uses something like a NordVPN or something like that, right?
We have the business version of NordVPN, NordLayer, and there's a case study about us with interviews with me on their website, actually.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard a lot about that just by watching like various creators on YouTube do ads about it.
Yeah, Nord sponsored one of Ryan's YouTube videos once too, yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, my friend, this has been an exceptional conversation. Again, I so appreciate your time and doing this. You always make time for me. And
absolutely.
I really, really appreciate it. This has been great. And I look forward to seeing a lot more of you.
Well, I look forward to you seeing a lot less of me. I'm trying to work some of this off.
What are you doing about that, if I may ask?
The semaglutide. I'm getting my blood work February 2nd, and I'm going to be getting on injections. Yeah.
Okay, good. So I was doing that for a little while.
Yeah.
So for about...
I was inspired by you. I was less afraid because I had a person in you that I became close with, who made me feel confident that there was a path there.
You had said to me once, and I'll cut this out if you want.
No, that's fine.
You had said to me once that you were considering doing like the lap band surgery or something like that.
I'm still considering a procedure.
Yeah. So I would really not go under the knife if you can avoid it.
That's like also what I've been told by other people. Yeah.
These drugs, like I did Mounjaro for close to a year, and I shed 45 pounds.
Yep.
And it's a game changer. It's a game changer of a drug because really, like, it's been around for a very, very long time, but it's always been, only given to people with type 2 diabetes because people who have type 2 diabetes are at a very high risk if they're overweight.
Yeah.
But it's not a dangerous drug. And I asked my doctor once, before I started, I was like, well, what's like the potential long-term effects of doing this? Like, I'm a little scared of doing it. And he goes, listen to me. The long-term effects of you being at your current weight
are worse than whatever far outweigh.
Far worse.
So that's a great thing that your doctor said. Whenever my friends or my family who I've talked to about this topic and warn me about different things, I say to them, I am positive that some of the processed foods that you eat, and the artificial,
especially in this country,
dude, I know,
dude,
we don't have to go all the way there. I'm just going to allude to it.
If you look on the fucking FDA's preferred food list, like cornflakes is at the top.
We're on the same page that people make these cherry picked decisions on what's okay to put in their body and not every single day. Where it's like, listen, I would rather, if I'm gonna have anything, I would rather have cardiological longevity. That maybe this other thing, it's 6 of these and a half dozen of the other. Do you know the number one cause of death? It's being born. I mean, what are you going to do?
No, listen, I think it's a good, like once I reached a point where I was happy, then I started like working out. I didn't do any working out in the first 8 months, and then I started once you feel like you have the energy again, then you start
it's a snowball effect. That's what I've heard.
And
I lost 70 pounds in 2018.
Wow.
I found it behind the couch during COVID. I said, holy shit, there it is. That's where I left it. For real. I looked great. It was related to when my wife and I were splitting up. I was like, I'm going to get in the gym and all this stuff. And that was a way, because we lived together, but I didn't want to be around. So I was like, I'm just going to be in the gym all the time.
Yeah.
And
and
it's
now,
like a rubber band.
You reach a point where you become like health obsessive almost, and you realize how valuable it is to keep your body healthy.
Yeah.
Now I'm doing 72-hour water fasts. I'm into it, I get really into my health and
good for you.
Do you ever hear that guy Gary Brecka?
No.
I'll send you a couple of his videos, but he's like a big health influencer.
I can't say that my feed is full of a bunch of those kinds of inspirational figures.
No, but it's not about weight loss. It's more just he really pulls the curtain back on a lot of the garbage that we're used to eating or the things that we think are good. One thing, for example, he says is that all of us should remove tap water from our diet completely because naturally tap water is full of fluoride, which is a chemical that's really, really unhealthy for us. He says that we should be drinking hydrogen water. Water that's infused with hydrogen ions is the best water you can put to the human body.
Ionized, stuff is good, very good. There's water sommeliers. You heard about these people?
No,
really, you can look it up on YouTube. There's water somms.
They're spinning in a glass.
I swear on my life, there's water sommeliers that go to the store and they review the different kinds of spring water. They say never filtered, only spring, right?
Yeah.
For the minerals and the different kinds of content, whatever it is. And do you know the story of how they found out about fluoride in the first place?
No.
Okay, so they were exploring. They were exploring.
There's always
the world.
a big they.
Yeah, whether it was the Dutch or the British or somebody was looking for a place to colonize, right? The Spanish, whoever, and they came across a tribe that had discovered grain agriculture, but still had perfect teeth. Seriously. Everywhere that they went in the world, and that they found people who had discovered grain agriculture and developed breads because they convert to sugar in your mouth, the enzymes, right? Everybody had messed up teeth except for this one tribe. So they analyzed the water. They found fluoride in it as being the way they had perfect teeth. Electrolytes was a similar accident. The cholera epidemic in London, the world's first epidemiologist couldn't figure out why, if they kept giving somebody more water, that the person would be okay, but the second he stopped giving them water, they would start to deteriorate from the dehydration again. And he found a factory of Scottish workers outside of the main cities that cholera had gotten to them, but none of them had died. And he analyzed their water supply and found out it was more alkaline. And that was the first time we ever made a connection between electrolytes and hydration.
Wow.
So, there's been a lot of accidental discoveries that everything becomes about, maybe there's a usefulness, but it's also dose. Too much water can kill you. Too much oxygen can kill you.
Too much anything will kill you.
Too much of this podcast can kill you. I swear. Yeah. We're gonna wrap it up. But I think it's important to make sure that we make the point. It's all about moderation. That's where I struggle. A lot of people struggle, and I'm looking forward to doing better with moderation in 24.
Well, maybe after like a year has gone by, after you've done some of this, like maybe we could do a round 2 talking, specifically about health.
A revisit. You can zoom the camera like way back in.
A part 2.
You got me in the shot with the shoulders, and it's a good thing.
A part 2.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this. I appreciate you, my friend.
Appreciate you too, brother. Right. Thank you so much.
Let's go to 200 Amsterdam.
Sounds good.
What do you have after this? Do you have things between now and the launch party?
Just lots and lots of work.
Yeah, I hear that.